Tom was 12 years old when everything in his life changed forever, and he never expected that a simple walk through the forest would lead him to discover something that had been hidden for hundreds of years. He lived in a small village called Greenwood with his grandmother, a kind old woman who told him stories every night before he went to sleep. She always spoke of magic and adventure, of brave heroes who fought against darkness, and Tom loved every single word she said. One morning in early spring, Tom woke up to find the sun shining brightly through his window, and he could hear the birds singing their beautiful songs outside. It was the perfect day for an adventure, he thought to himself. His grandmother was already awake and making breakfast in the kitchen when he came downstairs. The smell of fresh bread and honey filled the air, and Tom felt his stomach growl with hunger. "Good morning, my dear boy," his grandmother said with a warm smile on her face. "Did you sleep well last night?" Tom nodded his head and sat down at the old wooden table that had been in their family for many generations. He looked at his grandmother and noticed that she seemed worried about something, which made him curious. "Grandmother, is something wrong?" he asked, watching her face carefully for any sign of what might be troubling her. She paused for a moment and looked out the window toward the tall mountains in the distance. Those mountains were called Shadow Mountain, and everyone in the village knew that strange things happened there. "I had a dream last night," she finally said, her voice soft and serious. "And in my dream, I saw you standing at the top of Shadow Mountain with something glowing in your hands. I do not know what it means, but I feel that something important is about to happen." Tom felt a strange feeling in his chest, like his heart was beating faster than normal. He had always been curious about Shadow Mountain, but the villagers always told children to stay away from it. "Why does everyone fear Shadow Mountain?" Tom asked, hoping his grandmother would finally tell him the truth. She sat down across from him and took his hands in hers. Her eyes were full of memories from long ago, and Tom could see that she was deciding whether to share them with him. "Many years ago, before you were born and before even I was born, there was a powerful wizard who lived on that mountain," she began, her voice dropping to a whisper. "His name was Aldrich, and he protected our village from all kinds of danger and evil." Tom listened with wide eyes, completely amazed by what he was hearing. He had never heard this story before. But one day, a great darkness came to our land, his grandmother continued, and Aldrich had to use all of his magic to stop it. He succeeded in defeating the darkness, but he disappeared after that battle, and no one ever saw him again. "What happened to him?" Tom asked, unable to contain his curiosity. "Nobody knows for certain," she replied, shaking her head slowly. "Some say he died fighting the darkness, while others believe he is still alive somewhere on that mountain, waiting for the right person to find him." Tom thought about this for a long time. Could the wizard still be alive after all these years? And if so, why had he never returned to the village? After breakfast, Tom decided to take a walk through the forest that surrounded their village. He told his grandmother he would be careful and would not go too far. But deep in his heart, he felt drawn toward Shadow Mountain. The forest was beautiful and full of life. Tall trees reached up toward the sky, their green leaves dancing in the gentle wind, and colorful flowers grew everywhere he looked. Tom walked along a path he had taken many times before, but today something felt different. There was a strange energy in the air, and he could almost hear a voice calling to him from somewhere far away. He kept walking until he reached a part of the forest he had never seen before. The trees here were older and taller, and the light seemed to change, becoming golden and warm. In the middle of this strange place, Tom found a large stone covered in mysterious symbols. He had never seen anything like it, and he felt his heart pounding with excitement. He reached out his hand and touched the stone, and suddenly, a bright light exploded from it. Tom fell backward onto the soft grass, his eyes wide with shock and wonder. When the light faded, Tom saw that the stone had changed. It was now glowing with a soft blue light, and the symbols seemed to be moving across its surface. "Who are you, young one?" a voice asked, and Tom looked around in surprise, trying to find where the voice was coming from. "I am Tom," he answered, his voice shaking a little bit. "I live in the village of Greenwood with my grandmother." "Ah, Greenwood," the voice said, sounding pleased. "I have not heard that name in a very long time. Tell me, does the village still stand?" Tom nodded, even though he was not sure if the voice could see him or not. He was both scared and fascinated by what was happening. "The village is still there," he said. "But who are you, and how are you speaking to me?" There was a pause, and then the voice answered, "I am what remains of Aldrich, the wizard who once protected your village. My body is gone, but my spirit lives on in this stone, waiting for someone with a pure heart to find me." Tom could not believe what he was hearing. The wizard from his grandmother's story was real, and he was speaking to him right now. "Why have you been waiting here for so long?" Tom asked, his fear slowly turning into curiosity. "Because there is a great danger coming," Aldrich replied, his voice becoming more serious. "The darkness I fought many years ago was not destroyed. It was only sleeping, and now it is beginning to wake up again." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. This was not what he had expected to hear when he left his house this morning. "What can I do?" he asked, feeling very small and very scared. "I am just a boy from a small village." "You are much more than that, Tom," Aldrich said, his voice gentle and kind. "Inside of you, there is a power that has been sleeping since you were born. You are descended from a long line of protectors, and it is your destiny to save your village from the coming darkness." Tom stood there in silence, trying to understand everything the wizard had told him. His whole life was changing in a single moment, and he did not know if he was ready for what was coming. "I will help you find the strength you need," Aldrich continued, "but you must be brave, and you must trust yourself. The journey ahead will be difficult, but I believe in you." Tom took a deep breath and looked at the glowing stone. He did not know what the future held, but he knew that he could not run away from his destiny. "Tell me what I need to do," he said, his voice stronger than before. "I will do whatever it takes to protect my village and my grandmother." And with those words, Tom's great adventure began. Tom spent the next hour listening to Aldrich explain everything he needed to know. The wizard told him about the ancient darkness that was slowly waking up, and about the 3 magical objects that were needed to stop it. "Long ago, when I fought the darkness for the first time, I created 3 powerful objects," Aldrich explained, his voice echoing from the glowing stone. "A sword made of pure light, a shield that cannot be broken, and a crystal that holds the power of the sun itself." Tom listened carefully, trying to remember every detail. He knew that this information could save his village and everyone he loved. "Where are these objects now?" he asked, looking at the stone with determination in his eyes. "I hid them in 3 different places across the land," Aldrich replied. "The sword is in a cave beneath the crying waterfall. The shield is guarded by the ancient oak in the Forest of Whispers, and the crystal is at the very top of Shadow Mountain." Tom thought about how far away these places were. He had heard stories about the Crying Waterfall and the Forest of Whispers, but he had never been to either of them. "How will I find these places?" he asked, feeling worried about the long journey ahead. "I will give you a map that will guide you," Aldrich said, and suddenly, a piece of old paper appeared in the air in front of Tom. He grabbed it quickly and looked at it, seeing lines and symbols that showed the way. "But be careful, young Tom," the wizard warned. "The darkness knows that someone is coming to stop it, and it will send creatures to try to stop you. You must be brave, and you must be smart." Tom folded the map carefully and put it in his pocket. He was scared, but he knew that he could not let his fear stop him from doing what was right. "I have one more gift for you," Aldrich said, and another flash of light came from the stone. When it faded, Tom saw a small pendant lying on the grass in front of him. He picked it up and looked at it closely. It was made of silver and had a strange blue gem in the center that seemed to glow with its own light. "This pendant belonged to your great-grandfather," Aldrich explained. "He was one of the protectors I spoke of, and his courage lives on in this gem. Wear it always, and it will help you in times of great danger." Tom put the pendant around his neck and felt a warm feeling spread through his body. It was like the courage of his ancestors was flowing into him, making him stronger and braver. "Thank you, Aldrich," Tom said, bowing his head in respect. "I will not let you down." "I know you will not," the wizard replied, his voice growing fainter. "Now go, young protector. Time is running out, and you have a long journey ahead of you." Tom turned and ran back through the forest toward his village. He needed to tell his grandmother what had happened and prepare for the adventure that was waiting for him. When he arrived home, his grandmother was sitting by the fire, looking worried. She stood up quickly when she saw Tom rush through the door. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice full of concern. "I was so worried about you." Tom took a deep breath and told her everything that had happened. He showed her the map and the pendant, and he explained what Aldrich had told him about the coming darkness. His grandmother listened in silence, her face showing many different emotions. When Tom finished speaking, she sat down slowly and looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I always knew this day would come," she said softly. "Your mother had the same gift, the same connection to the ancient protectors. She went on a similar journey when she was young." Tom was shocked to hear this. His mother had died when he was just a baby, and he knew very little about her. "My mother was a protector too?" he asked, sitting down next to his grandmother. "Yes, she was," his grandmother replied, wiping her eyes. "She was brave and kind, just like you are. She fought against evil and protected innocent people all across the land." Tom felt a new determination growing inside him. If his mother could be brave, then so could he. "I have to do this, grandmother," he said, taking her hand in his. "I have to find the three objects and stop the darkness before it destroys everything we love." His grandmother nodded slowly and squeezed his hand. She was scared for him, but she also knew that he was right. "Then you must go," she said, her voice strong despite her tears. "But promise me that you will be careful and that you will come back to me." "I promise," Tom said, hugging her tightly. "I will come back, and when I do, the darkness will be gone forever." That night, Tom packed a small bag with everything he would need for his journey. He took some food, a warm blanket, a knife for protection, and the map that Aldrich had given him. His grandmother gave him a special compass that had belonged to his grandfather. She said it would always point toward home, no matter how far away he was. "If you ever feel lost or afraid, just look at this compass," she told him, "and remember that your family loves you and believes in you." Tom held the compass close to his heart and felt the same warm feeling he had felt when he put on the pendant. He was not alone in this journey, and that gave him hope. Early the next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Tom said goodbye to his grandmother and began his journey. The air was cool and fresh, and the world seemed full of possibility. He followed the map toward the Crying Waterfall, which was several days' walk from his village. The path took him through fields of golden wheat and past farms where people were just waking up. Some of the farmers waved to him as he passed, and Tom waved back. He wondered if they knew what he was doing and where he was going. By the middle of the day, Tom had reached the edge of a large forest that he did not recognize. The trees were tall and dark, and strange sounds came from deep within. He looked at the map and saw that he needed to go through this forest to reach the waterfall. There was no other way, so he took a deep breath and walked into the shadows. The forest was unlike anything Tom had ever seen. The trees seemed to move when he was not looking at them, and the air was thick with the smell of flowers and earth. He walked for hours, following the path shown on the map. Sometimes the path was clear and easy to follow, but other times it disappeared completely, and Tom had to use his instincts to find the way. As the sun began to set, Tom heard a strange noise coming from somewhere ahead of him. It sounded like someone crying, soft and sad. He moved carefully through the trees, trying not to make any noise. When he finally reached the source of the sound, he was surprised by what he saw. Sitting on a fallen log was a young girl about his age. She had long dark hair and was wearing a torn green dress, and tears were running down her face. "Are you okay?" Tom asked, stepping out from behind a tree. The girl looked up quickly, her eyes wide with fear. For a moment, she looked like she might run away. "Please do not be afraid," Tom said gently, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "My name is Tom, and I am just passing through this forest." The girl looked at him carefully, as if trying to decide whether she could trust him. Finally, she spoke. "My name is Lily," she said, her voice shaking. "I was traveling with my father when we were attacked by strange shadow creatures. We got separated, and now I do not know where he is." Tom felt his heart sink. The shadow creatures must be servants of the darkness that Aldrich had warned him about. "Do not worry," Tom said, sitting down next to her. "I will help you find your father. I am on a journey to stop the very darkness that created those creatures." Lily looked at him with hope in her eyes. Perhaps she was not as alone as she had thought. "Really?" she asked. "You would help me?" Tom nodded and smiled. He knew that his journey had just become more complicated, but he also knew that helping others was the right thing to do. "Of course I will help you," he said. "That is what friends are for." And with those words, Tom found his first companion on his great adventure. Tom and Lily traveled together through the dark forest, and Tom told her everything about his quest. He explained about Aldrich the wizard, the 3 magical objects, and the darkness that was threatening to destroy everything. Lily listened with great interest, and when Tom finished, she shared her own story. She told him that she and her father were merchants who traveled from village to village selling spices and fabrics. "We were on our way to a market in the eastern towns when the shadow creatures appeared," she explained, her voice still shaky from the memory. "They came out of nowhere, like smoke given form, and we had to run in different directions to escape them." Tom nodded thoughtfully. The darkness was already sending its servants out into the world, which meant they had even less time than he had thought. "We should try to find your father first," Tom said, looking at the map. "Do you have any idea where he might have gone?" Lily thought for a moment, and then her face brightened with an idea. She remembered that her father had always told her to meet him at the old stone bridge if they ever got separated. "The stone bridge is not far from here," she said excitedly. "It is maybe half a day's walk to the east. My father will be waiting for me there." Tom looked at the map and saw that the stone bridge was not too far off his path. He could help Lily find her father and then continue on toward the crying waterfall. "Then let us go," he said with a smile. "We should reach the bridge before nightfall if we walk quickly." The two of them set off through the forest, moving as fast as they could while still being careful. The trees seemed less scary now that Tom had a friend to walk with. As they walked, Lily told Tom more about her life as a merchant's daughter. She had visited many different places and met many different people, and she knew all kinds of useful things about surviving in the wilderness. "My father taught me how to find clean water and safe food," she said proudly. "And I know how to make a fire without matches and how to build a shelter from branches and leaves." Tom was impressed. These skills would be very helpful on their journey. "That is amazing," he said. "I only know the forest near my village. I have never traveled this far from home before." Lily smiled at him, and Tom noticed that she seemed happier now that she was not alone. Having a friend made everything seem less frightening. They walked for several hours and the forest around them slowly began to change. The trees became smaller and more spread out, and more sunlight reached the ground. Finally, they came to a wide river with a beautiful old stone bridge crossing it. The bridge was covered in moss and vines, and it looked like it had been there for hundreds of years. On the other side of the bridge, sitting by a small campfire, was an older man with a kind face and a long gray beard. When he saw Lily, his eyes filled with joy and relief. "Lily!" he shouted, jumping to his feet and running toward them. "You are safe. I was so worried about you." Lily ran across the bridge and threw herself into her father's arms. They hugged each other tightly while Tom watched with a happy smile on his face. "Father, this is Tom," Lily said, pulling back and gesturing toward her new friend. "He found me in the forest and helped me find you. He's on a very important quest." The old man looked at Tom with grateful eyes and walked over to shake his hand. His grip was strong and warm. "Thank you for bringing my daughter back to me," he said, his voice full of emotion. "My name is Marcus, and I am forever in your debt." "It was the right thing to do," Tom replied modestly. "Lily is very brave, and she helped me as much as I helped her." Marcus invited Tom to stay and share a meal with them before continuing his journey. Tom accepted gratefully, as he was very hungry after walking all day. While they ate, Tom told Marcus about his quest, and the old merchant listened with growing concern. He had heard stories about the darkness and knew how dangerous it could be. "You are very brave to take on such a dangerous mission," Marcus said seriously. "But you should not have to face it alone." He looked at his daughter, and something passed between them in that look. Lily nodded, as if agreeing to something unspoken. "I want to go with Tom," Lily announced. "I want to help him on his quest." Tom was surprised but also pleased. Having Lily with him would make the journey much easier and less lonely. Marcus thought about this for a long moment. It was clear that he was worried about his daughter's safety, but he also seemed to understand that this was important. "Very well," he finally said, "but you must promise to be careful and to look after each other." Both Tom and Lily promised, and Marcus reached into his bag and pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside were several gold coins and a beautiful silver bracelet. "Take these," he said, handing the pouch to Lily. "The coins will help you buy supplies, and the bracelet was your mother's. It will protect you on your journey." Lily took the gifts with tears in her eyes and hugged her father one more time. It was hard to say goodbye, but she knew that she was making the right choice. The next morning, Tom and Lily said farewell to Marcus and continued on their journey toward the crying waterfall. The old merchant watched them until they disappeared into the distance. They walked for 2 more days, passing through meadows filled with wildflowers and over hills that gave them views of the beautiful land around them. On the evening of the 2nd day, they heard a sound in the distance that grew louder as they walked. It was the sound of water falling from a great height. "We are getting close," Tom said excitedly, checking the map. "The crying waterfall should be just over that ridge." They climbed the ridge as fast as they could, and when they reached the top, they both stopped and stared in wonder at what they saw. The crying waterfall was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. Water poured down from a cliff so high that they could barely see the top, creating a wall of white foam that sparkled in the fading sunlight. It is called the crying waterfall because the sound of the water sounds like someone crying, Lily said softly, and Tom understood immediately. The sound was haunting and beautiful at the same time. But their moment of peace was interrupted by a dark presence. Standing at the base of the waterfall were 3 shadow creatures, their bodies made of swirling darkness and their eyes glowing with red fire. "They are guarding the entrance to the cave," Tom whispered, his heart pounding in his chest. "We have to get past them to find the sword." Lily gripped her father's bracelet tightly. She was scared, but she was also determined to help her friend. "What do we do?" she asked, looking at Tom for guidance. Tom thought quickly. He remembered that Aldrich had said the pendant would help him in times of great danger, so he reached up and touched the blue gem. Immediately, he felt a surge of warmth and courage flow through him. Ideas came into his mind, clear and sharp, and he knew exactly what they needed to do. "I have a plan," he said with new confidence in his voice, "but I need you to trust me." Lily nodded without hesitation. She trusted Tom with her life. "I will distract the shadow creatures while you sneak around to the entrance of the cave," Tom explained. "Once you are inside, look for the sword and bring it back. The sword should be able to destroy these creatures." It was a dangerous plan, but it was their only chance. They looked at each other, both knowing that this was the moment they had been preparing for. "Be careful," Lily said, squeezing Tom's hand. "You too," Tom replied, and then he stood up and walked toward the shadow creatures, his heart full of the courage of his ancestors. Tom walked toward the shadow creatures with his head held high, even though his legs were shaking with fear. He had to be brave for Lily and for everyone counting on him. "Hey, you dark monsters," he shouted, waving his arms to get their attention. "Over here. Come and catch me if you can." The shadow creatures turned their glowing red eyes toward Tom and let out terrible screaming sounds. They began moving toward him, their dark bodies flowing across the ground like black water. Tom ran to the left, leading them away from the cave entrance behind the waterfall. He could see Lily sneaking around the rocks from the corner of his eye. The creatures were fast, much faster than Tom had expected, and one of them almost caught him with a long arm made of shadows. He dodged at the last moment and kept running. He jumped over rocks and ducked under branches, using everything around him to stay ahead of the monsters. His heart was beating so hard that he could hear it in his ears. Meanwhile, Lily had reached the entrance to the cave. It was a dark hole in the cliff face, hidden behind the curtain of falling water, and she had to push through the cold spray to get inside. The cave was dark and wet, and Lily could barely see where she was going. She felt along the walls with her hands, moving deeper and deeper into the mountain. After what felt like forever, she saw a faint glow coming from somewhere ahead. She moved toward it, her heart full of hope that she had found the sword. In a small chamber at the end of the cave, resting on a stone altar, was the most beautiful sword Lily had ever seen. It was made of pure silver that glowed with a white light, and its handle was decorated with precious gems. She reached out and grabbed the sword, and the moment her fingers touched it, the entire cave lit up with brilliant light. The sword seemed to recognize that she was a friend. Outside, Tom was getting tired. He had been running for what felt like hours, and the shadow creatures were not giving up. They seemed to be getting closer with every passing moment. Just when he thought he could not run anymore, he heard Lily's voice calling to him from the direction of the waterfall. "Tom, I found it," she shouted, holding the glowing sword above her head. "Come this way." Tom used his last bit of strength to run toward her. The shadow creatures followed close behind, their red eyes burning with hunger. When Tom reached Lily, she handed him the sword, and the moment he held it, he felt its power surge through his body. It was like holding a piece of the sun itself. He turned to face the shadow creatures, the sword held out in front of him. They stopped moving and seemed to hesitate, as if they were afraid of the light. "Get back," Tom shouted, swinging the sword in a wide arc. A beam of pure white light shot out from the blade and hit the first creature, causing it to dissolve into nothing. The other two creatures screamed and tried to attack, but Tom was not afraid anymore. With two more swings of the magical sword, he destroyed them both. When the last creature was gone, the area around the waterfall grew peaceful again. The only sounds were the falling water and the singing of birds in the nearby trees. Tom and Lily looked at each other, and started laughing with relief. They had done it. They had found the first magical object. That was incredible, Lily said, her eyes wide with amazement. You were so brave. So were you, Tom replied. I could not have done it without you. We make a good team. They rested by the waterfall that night, sleeping in a small dry area behind some rocks. The sword's glow kept them warm and safe from any other creatures that might be lurking nearby. The next morning, they checked the map and saw that their next destination was the Forest of Whispers. This was where the unbreakable shield was hidden, guarded by an ancient oak tree. The Forest of Whispers was several days' journey to the north, through mountains and valleys that neither of them had ever seen before. They walked for 3 days, and each day brought new challenges and new wonders. They crossed rushing rivers on fallen logs, climbed steep hills covered in wild berries, and slept under the stars while telling each other stories. On the 4th day, they finally reached the edge of the Forest of Whispers, and they both stopped to stare at the strange sight before them. The trees in this forest were unlike any trees they had ever seen. Their leaves were silver and gold, and they moved in the wind like they were dancing. But the strangest thing was the sound. From deep within the forest came a constant whispering noise, like thousands of voices all speaking at once. It was impossible to understand what they were saying, but the sound was both beautiful and creepy. I see why they call it the Forest of Whispers, Lily said quietly, as if she was afraid to disturb the voices. Tom nodded and looked at the map. According to Aldrich's instructions, the ancient oak was in the very center of the forest. We need to find the oldest and biggest tree in this forest, Tom explained. That will be the guardian of the shield. They entered the forest carefully, the whispering growing louder with every step. The silver and gold leaves sparkled above them, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground. As they walked deeper into the forest, they began to notice that the trees seemed to be moving. Not just their leaves, but their entire trunks seemed to shift and bend. The trees are alive, Lily whispered in amazement. They are watching us. Tom felt the pendant grow warm against his chest, and he took this as a sign that they were going in the right direction. He held up the glowing sword to light their way. After walking for hours, they finally came to a massive tree that was so big it made all the other trees look like babies. Its trunk was wider than Tom's entire house, and its branches reached up so high that they disappeared into the clouds. This must be the ancient oak, Tom said, walking toward it slowly. The guardian of the shield. As soon as he got close, the tree began to move. Its branches bent down toward them, and a face appeared in the bark of its trunk, old and wise and full of power. Who dares enter my forest and approach my sacred form? The tree asked, its voice deep and rumbling like thunder. Tom stepped forward bravely and bowed his head in respect. He remembered that Aldrich had said to be polite to the ancient creatures of the land. My name is Tom, Great Guardian, he said clearly. I come seeking the shield that you protect. I needed to stop the darkness that is threatening to destroy the world. The ancient oak studied him for a long moment, its wooden eyes looking deep into his soul. Then it turned its gaze to Lily, examining her as well. I sense great courage in both of you, the tree finally said. But courage alone is not enough. To earn the shield, you must prove your wisdom and your kindness. Tom and Lily looked at each other, wondering what kind of test they would have to face. What must we do? Tom asked, ready for whatever challenge the guardian would give them. In the northern part of my forest, there is a family of deer that is trapped by a river that has overflowed its banks, the oak explained. They have been stuck there for 3 days, with no food or water. If you can save them and bring them to safety, I will give you the shield. It was not the kind of test Tom had expected, but he understood why the guardian had chosen it. True heroes do not just fight against evil, they also help those who cannot help themselves. "We will save them," Tom declared, and Lily nodded in agreement beside him. "Then go," the ancient oak said, its branches pointing north, "and may the light guide your path." Tom and Lily ran toward the north, determined to save the deer and prove that they were worthy of the magical shield. Tom and Lily ran through the forest of whispers until they found the trapped deer family. A mother deer and her 2 young fawns were standing on a small piece of land completely surrounded by rushing water. The river had risen so high that it looked like a lake, and the deer were too afraid to try to swim across. They looked tired and hungry, and Tom knew they needed help immediately. "We have to build some kind of bridge," Lily said, looking around for materials. "Something strong enough to hold them." They found several fallen logs and large branches nearby. Working together, they dragged them to the edge of the water and began building a path across the river. It was hard work, and the current kept trying to wash away their bridge, but they did not give up. They tied the logs together with vines and weighted them down with heavy stones. After many hours of effort, they finally had a bridge that looked strong enough to cross. Tom carefully walked across it first to make sure it would hold. "Come on," he called to the deer, speaking softly so he would not scare them. "It is safe. You can cross now." The mother deer looked at him with grateful eyes and slowly stepped onto the bridge. Her fawns followed close behind, and soon all 3 of them had crossed safely to solid ground. The deer family ran off into the forest, stopping once to look back at Tom and Lily as if to say thank you. When they returned to the ancient oak, the great tree was smiling. At least, it looked like a smile in the patterns of its bark. "You have proven your kindness," the guardian said warmly. "You could have ignored those deer and focused only on your quest, but instead, you chose to help them. This is the mark of true heroes." A branch of the ancient oak reached down and presented them with the most beautiful shield Tom had ever seen. It was made of gleaming gold with patterns of leaves and vines carved into its surface. "This shield cannot be broken by any force in this world," the oak explained. "It will protect you from the darkness and all of its servants." Tom took the shield with trembling hands and bowed deeply to the ancient guardian. Now they had 2 of the 3 magical objects. "Thank you, great guardian," Tom said sincerely. "We will use this gift wisely." "I know you will," the oak replied. "Now go." The darkness grows stronger with each passing day, and you must hurry to find the final object. Tom and Lily left the forest of whispers and headed toward their final destination, the top of Shadow Mountain, where the crystal that held the power of the sun was waiting. The journey to the mountain took 5 long days. They crossed deserts of hot sand, climbed through fields of sharp rocks, and pushed through storms of wind and rain. But finally, they stood at the base of Shadow Mountain, looking up at its dark and foreboding peak. Even the sunlight seemed afraid to touch its slopes. "This is it," Tom said, taking a deep breath. "The final challenge." They began climbing the mountain, and with every step, the air grew colder and the shadows grew darker. Tom held up the glowing sword to light their way, and Lily stayed close behind him. As they climbed higher and higher, they began to see signs of the darkness that lived here. Black smoke rose from cracks in the rocks, and strange whispers tried to fill their minds with fear and doubt. "Do not listen to them," Tom said firmly. "They are trying to trick us." Lily nodded and focused on putting one foot in front of the other. She was scared, but she trusted Tom to lead them through. After hours of climbing, they finally reached the top of Shadow Mountain. Before them was a large flat area of black stone, and in the center stood a tall pedestal with a glowing crystal on top. But between them and the crystal was the largest and most terrifying shadow creature they had ever seen. It was made of pure darkness, with eyes like burning coals and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. "So, The little heroes have finally arrived," the creature said in a voice like grinding stone. "I am the heart of darkness, the source of all evil in this land. Did you really think 2 children could stop me?" Tom stepped forward, the sword in one hand and the shield in the other. His heart was pounding, but he was not going to run away. "We are not just children," he said bravely. "We are protectors, and we will stop you." The heart of darkness laughed, and the sound shook the entire mountain. Then it attacked, sending waves of dark energy toward them. Tom raised the shield, and the dark energy bounced off harmlessly. Then he swung the sword, sending a beam of light toward the creature. The battle was fierce and long. The heart of darkness was powerful, but Tom and Lily worked together perfectly, attacking and defending as if they had been fighting side by side for years. But no matter how many times Tom hit the creature with the sword, it kept coming back. It seemed to be regenerating faster than they could hurt it. "We need the crystal," Lily shouted. "It is the only thing that can destroy it completely." Tom knew she was right, but the creature was standing between them and the pedestal. There was only one way to get past it. "Lily, I am going to distract it," Tom said. "You grab the crystal and throw it to me." Before she could argue, Tom charged at the heart of darkness, swinging the sword wildly. The creature turned all of its attention toward him, giving Lily the opening she needed. She ran around the edge of the platform as fast as she could, her heart racing with fear. The crystal was so close, just a few more steps. Her fingers closed around the crystal, and it was warm in her hands, like holding a piece of the sun. She turned and threw it toward Tom with all her strength. "Tom, catch!" she screamed. Tom reached up and caught the crystal in his free hand. The moment he did, the sword and shield and crystal all began to glow together, brighter than anything he had ever seen. The heart of darkness screamed in terror and tried to run away, but it was too late. The combined power of the 3 magical objects was too strong for it. A beam of pure golden light shot out from Tom's hands and hit the creature directly in the chest. The heart of darkness dissolved into nothing, its screams fading into silence. When the light finally dimmed, Tom and Lily stood alone on the top of Shadow Mountain. The darkness was gone, and the sun was shining brightly for the first time in what felt like forever. They hugged each other tightly, tears of joy streaming down their faces. They had done it. They had saved the world. When they returned to Tom's village, they were welcomed as heroes. People came from all around to thank them and celebrate their victory. Tom's grandmother was the happiest of all. She hugged her grandson and told him how proud she was of everything he had accomplished. Lily's father, Marcus, came to the celebration too, and he was overjoyed to see his daughter safe and sound. He had never doubted that she would return. That night, as Tom and Lily sat on the hill overlooking the village, watching the stars come out one by one, they talked about everything they had been through. "What will you do now?" Lily asked, looking at her friend. Tom thought about this for a moment, and then he smiled. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. "I want to keep helping people," he said. "There is so much good we can do in this world, and I do not want to stop just because we defeated the darkness." Lily smiled back at him. She felt the same way. "Then we will do it together," she said, "as partners and as friends." Tom nodded happily. He had started this journey as a scared boy from a small village, but he had become something more. He had become a protector, just like his mother and his ancestors before him. And he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with courage, kindness, and the help of the best friend he had ever had. And so ends the story of Tom and Lily and their great adventure, but in truth, it was only the beginning. For heroes never truly rest, and there is always more good to be done in the world. The people of Greenwood still tell this story to their children, reminding them that even the smallest person can make the biggest difference. and that the light will always triumph over darkness as long as there are brave hearts willing to fight for what is right.